I'm being joined in the studios now by Professor Oluwarotimi Akinola. He's a professor of obstetrics and gynecology. He's also the national president of the Society of Gynecology and Obstetrics of Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Pregnant women in particular, I'm sure you listened to Dr. Roberts, are not particularly at risk any more than the rest of the population at this point in time. But given what has happened in recent past, would you say that we need to make special provisions for them, given your own experience with dealing with them?
Certainly, yes. One, because it's an at-risk group. From every other thing that we knew about most illnesses, we knew that immunity is depressed somehow in pregnancy. So, whilst you say, for example, because this is a new disease, we do not know. We don't know whether pregnant women are more prone to it or whether the outcome is worse in them or it's not, because it's a new disease. So one cannot be categorical, but certainly because we are dealing with a different circumstance. We are dealing with a mother, a child, and that kind of strange situation where it's neither one or two, but a mixture somewhere. So that's where, and then there are already problems in pregnancy
that are unrelated
to COVID. And then there are also sociological implications of this, which might impact negatively, particularly in, we are the capital, world capital for maternal mortality now. And so anything that makes that worse, actually, this is coming at a very bad time for us.
Given that, what would you say that now needs to be done to make that provision? Because in the general commotion that COVID-19 has caused, it seems as if some people have gotten either left behind or gotten ignored. This group we're talking about is one. Many of them have not been able to go to the hospitals for usual antenatal care because they have been told, well, that could put you at risk of exposure and all of that. So those who can are doing some kind of social media,
remote
clinics
and all that. Yes, truly, our society came out pretty early at the outset of this late March with an advisory to practitioners, which I think is NCDC also, FIGO, World Health Organization sanctioned. And that's the fact that you reduce the number of visits that these women have, so that it reduces the exposure. If you go to most of our antenatal clinics, you see the grouping and all the large crowd and all that sort of thing, that this is not the time for that. So we advocate that perhaps you see them less frequently, or at occasions when it will be more impactful, so that you can, what we call focused antenatal care. So it's not as business as usual, but you go in for specific things. So we give wider appointments, longer appointments, and see them less frequently. We think that still subsists because hospitals are not, most diseases will go to the hospital. So the risk of contracting infection usually will be maximal when you go to the hospital.
The other thing that is there is to take a look at this question of mother-child, possibilities of transmission. This is your field of expertise. This is what you do. You deal with this on a daily basis. When other ailments like this have surfaced, when we had HIV. When we had that, this was one of the big issues that came out of that, the possibility of child transmission. I asked Dr. Roberts this, but I'm also going to ask you. Given the fact that there is the possibility of this transmission, even though we don't have the exact numbers because we're still looking at this, what do you think that can be done now for those who are listening to you that they can use possibly to guard themselves against the possibility that if they were to be positive, they could prevent themselves from passing this on? Or is that a tall task?
Well, on the contrary, most guidelines state, for example, that yes, unlike most of those other diseases where we had the problem of transplacental, that is vertical transmission, like HIV and all that to the baby. It's only one instance that's been proven that they found antibodies in the baby. IgM, they are big, they cannot pass through the placenta. So when a child is born and they found the antibody, it meant that the baby must have been exposed to the virus and that produced antibody in utero. So that case had been published and documented. Several other cases, smaller ones and other sort of things, have shown that there is no such thing. But right now, particularly in the developing low, middle income countries and all that, children tend to die more from gastrointestinal problems, diarrheas, and all those
cough,
things.
The things that had been on ground.
On ground before. So what we still advocate is that these children still be breastfed. Masking. Mothers should wear masks while breastfeeding their children. And all that. It's presumed that the baby had not been vertically infected and should not be infected now horizontally. So those are the things, that the measures that are being taken. But like I said, it's a developing thing. There's no treatment. And so you cannot say, for example, like in HIV, if you use antiretroviral drugs, transmission to the baby is minimized. That doesn't exist. So it's physical barrier that you can use to prevent this happening.
For someone in your practice now, is it possible for you to actually, at the point of delivery now, because, I mean, at the end of all the lovely care, the baby still has to be delivered. How much of a risk is there now when patients such as those present themselves?
Again, interestingly, we don't have that data, that pool of data. In Nigeria, perhaps now, because you deal with what's been, maybe in Lagos, we've had about 4 or 5 kids delivered to COVID-positive women. But what we've heard from the US and from the other places and all that is the fact that delivery, again, our advisory is that don't interfere with the delivery process, allow it to go. But where obstetrics dictates that they must have surgery, they have surgery, sections are performed, whatever is necessary should be done. But then every patient is taken as if they were COVID positive.
Okay.
So that universal precautions must go in. You limit the number of people who are present at delivery. You limit the number of people who are present at resuscitating the child. And then if you need to do any procedure, you do it with maximal care and protection. And even in where it is proven that the patient, you know, like in the United States now, you might get into labor ward and they say before you're taken in for an induction of labor, they must get your COVID status done.
Yes, that's right.
We aren't there yet. I mean, if you take 48 hours here, or sometimes like 1 week or 10 days to get your results, the patient's either well or the patient has long departed before you get your results. So you just got to treat everybody with universal precaution. And so those are the limitations that we have. But everything should be done as appropriate, and women with all those complications will arise, whether or not they have COVID. The only thing that's been found out is the fact, for example, that we're having a little more prematurity, perhaps because of the fever that's involved, so that triggers labor, so it could increase the risk of premature delivery. And if that happens, of course, it also complications of prematurity to the infant and all that. So those are the things that are documented as at now.
Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Oluwarotimi Akinola, National President, Society of Gynecology and Obstetrics of Nigeria. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll update you on where we stand with confirmed cases, recoveries, and deaths with COVID-19 in Nigeria. Plus, outside our shores, what's the situation? Please stay on with us.